Hi everyone, this is Kona, and I am going to talk through a little bit on just how to do this Project 1 Minitab analysis. The biggest thing is just so you can hear me talk through it and hopefully better understand what you need to do for this. So really important before you even get started, make sure you review the Project 1 student data and the introduction to Minitab information. There's a lot there, so please do not wait to go through it because there's a lot to get through. So the first thing, and I will say I'm not going to actually do this with our Project 1 data, and the reason for that is this is your assignment. But what I am going to do is I'm going to use that example data so that way I can still kind of talk you through it. So the first thing is you need to save this file, so you would open that and save it. Then create a data dictionary for the data and the type, and type this into a Word document. So what is a data dictionary? Well, if we go back here to week 3 resources, and actually we didn't even have to go to week 3 resources. We could have just gone straight to the introduction to Minitab information. But so we've got the introduction to Minitab information and intro to Minitab example data. So what does a data dictionary look like? Basically, your data dictionary is going to look something like this. Data dictionary. It will have each one of your columns, what the column represents, so the question or whatever it was asked, and then the answer option. If you don't have an answer option, then you could just say answers vary or whatever. So what you would need to do for our student survey data is do a data dictionary. And hint, I already did the data dictionary if you go and you look at the page on the data. So go find that page, and I already did the data dictionary, but you do have to include some extra information. So I'm just going to go ahead, because all you'll have to do once you find the data dictionary is copy this, and let's see, Jones, Math 113, Project 1, Methodological analysis. Okay, so step 1, dictionary. Okay, then I am just pasting that in. Oh, and that's kind of icky. So I will say, please don't just like paste it in and leave it in that format. You know, have a little, just fix the formatting. Okay, so there we go. So here's my data dictionary, and actually, I'll just say, because this bugs me, I'm formatting that over there. Okay, so step 1, data dictionary. So I don't need that in there. Okay, so what else was asked for in this project? So create a data dictionary, and so remember what I said the data dictionary is? It's just each question. So if you're not sure, now remember this is the example data that I'm using. So for each column, so text, social media, TV, sleep, for each one of those columns, your data dictionary is, see the text here that goes along with the text from the data, and then the number of texts the person sent, social media. So it's just, once again, those questions and the answer options for each question that you've covered. Okay, so create a data dictionary. This is a document you'll submit, and they represent. Okay, as part of your data dictionary, indicate which variables are numerical or numeric and which one are categorical. So as part of this, and I don't care where you put it, but somewhere at the end, and just put categorical. And then you go through categorical, numeric. So, and I would still put categorical. I just was trying to show you, and no, look, here's a numeric one. Okay. So, step 1 would be finished once I got done filling in which ones are numeric and which ones are categorical. All right, initial analysis. Using Minitab, find the following information, provide the output from Minitab in the Word document from step 1. So descriptive statistics, mean, standard deviation, variance, first quartile, median, third quartile, min, max, and total for all of the descriptive ones. So over here, remember I'd come up to stat, basic stats, descriptive statistics, And sorry. Okay, so for this one, I can just copy all of them, select, double check my statistics, mean, standard deviation, variance, first, median, third, and min, max, and total. Okay. And okay. Ah, sorry. I forgot to turn off the box plot. So ignore that. Ah. Okay. So this is the part you need right here. And what you do, remember, you come up here, say copy as a picture, and then on your Word document, and this has to be in your Word document, step 2, statistics, and paste that in there. There you go. Okay, so that was the first part of step 2. So once again, go back to, and then counts for all categorical variables. So then we come back here and go to stat, tables, tally. And for this one, let's do counts and percents. And so which ones are the categoricals? So categorical is text, social media, TV, sleep, pet, pet, work status, time on homework, household, gender, grade. Okay, household wasn't one of them. I was just kind of going through. Okay, so once I got all of those in, I click OK. There are all those. So now I copy as a picture. I come back to my Word document, and underneath here, I put, what was this called? Oracle counts tally. Something like that. And there we go. Now that's kind of really big, so I might want to go ahead and make it a little smaller, but it's still not fitting on the page, so I don't know. You might want to play around with it. But I guess if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. And personally, I like to make things fit, but that's kind of me. So maybe you play with the margins, or maybe it just doesn't get on there. Oh, there we go. Yay. Okay, I got it on there. And you don't have to do all of that. That's just like my being me, and I like to have stuff on the same page. Okay, so step 3. I think that finished up step 2. Let's double check. All right, step 3, counts for all the categoricals. Copy the counts. Okay. Step 3, review the data from step 2, see what results interest you or that you'd like to know more about. Example, so this is for you guys. You want to look at how people who work full-time differ compared to those who work part-time. You're interested in full-time students, part-time. Be creative. And this is where you want to look at the videos on simple data comparisons. Those videos can all be found in the Introduction to Minitab Information. There's lots of little videos, I would say most between 3, 5, 6 minutes long, that show how to do this. But what you would do then is, let's see, for step 3 is where you actually say, on the Word document, so right here, on the Word document, briefly explain what variables, things you tried, your thought process for the variables you picked. So I'm not going to actually type all of that out, but remember, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And please, if you do copy, fix it so it's all the same font. Okay. In fact, I might have to go through and make sure that later, because that's, you know what, it's not black. There you go. Okay. So on the Word document, briefly explain what variables, things you tried, and your thought process for why you picked the variables you picked. This could be based on the initial analysis or just here. So you could go through here and say, you know, like, what am I interested in? I will say something like this type of work status where there's lots of different categories, but not a lot of people in each category. That's one that you're probably not going to find a lot for. Text. while that might seem interesting, there's just so many different categories and not enough people in each category. It's just not going to show you very much that's interesting. What you really want to look for, obviously you get your numeric data, so your number data, and then for your categories, you're looking for things like social media, TV. Now that's actually a good one because there's people only did 0 or 1 to 3 hours for TV. So TV might be a good one, and sleep. So you know what? I think I'm going to try to base my story around, actually, you know what? I'm going to base my story around pet ownership. So I'm interested in pets because, you know, I think animals are awesome. So that's where you would kind of explain, well, I kind of thought through this and I looked at that, but eventually I think I'm going to do, you know, pets. But then what you need to do is try some stuff with pets. So this is where you actually do go back to this introduction. Oh, wrong page. This is where you go back to that introduction to Minitab, and you look at comparing data. And here is, are you looking at a numeric and a categorical variable? 2 categoricals, 2 numerics. So over here, first of all, if I'm interested in pets, well, pets, if I had to put it down there, pet is a categorical. So if all of my story is around pets, then I can only do data analysis that have to do with categorical data. Then I just have to pick what other data am I interested in for pets. So for example, if I'm interested in pet ownership and hours exercise, because I think people who exercise more, or people who have pets probably exercise more because the pet, you know, they need to go walk their dog or take care of their animal or something. So for me, the hours exercise, that's a numeric variable right there. So I'm looking for a comparison that has categorical and numeric. So back here, as I'm scrolling through, okay, categorical and numeric, I can use this comparison right here. Numeric, 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 numeric separated by a categorical. So if I had another numeric one, I could do this one. Here's another one, numeric and categorical, but this one is kind of similar to this one. But okay, so there's one, numeric, categorical, categorical, and here's another numeric and categorical. So basically I know that any of those types of comparisons are ones that I could do with pets. So for this one, that's a bar chart. This is a box plot. I think I'm actually going to end up doing this one, descriptive comparison with the box plot. So for this one, if I had watched the video, I would know that I would go to Stat, Basic, Descriptive. I'd take all of those off and I'd pick just exercise and then pet. And for statistics, I'll leave those okay. But for graphs, I do want that box plot. It isn't normally checked, so you'd want to go in and check it. Click OK, click OK. And here we go. So is there anything interesting? And you know what? It looks like, and so here's these statistics right here in this one, that people who have a pet, their mean average number of exercise, hours per exercise per week is higher than the people who don't have a pet. So, okay, that's kind of interesting. So remember, we're copying it as a picture. We're coming back over into this document. And this is almost getting into step 4. So I'm just going to go ahead and put step 4. You can go back and talk more about the step 3 stuff, but let's at least get this data in there. So, and I might want to give myself like a reminder that this is pet ownership compared to ownership. Yeah, and I can't spell to save my soul. Pet ownership compared to hours exercise per week. Just so I can remember what I was looking at. But then also remember we've got this box plot. So box plots will show you the data that it's not as heavily influenced by outliers, to where the mean might be more influenced by outliers. Here when you look at people who have a pet and how much they exercise, well, they've got a wider range, but you know, the big chunk of the data still looks like it's kind of the same, maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to go into all the details because I want you guys to be thinking about it, but definitely what you do is you just click on the box, copy the graph, come over here, and down below, paste that graph in. And so then you've got your graph, and you can always come in and, you know, play and manipulate it with it. Okay, so there's one part of my story, that it does appear that people who have pets do seem to exercise a little bit more, or at least there's some variability, even though it does look like the person with the least amount of exercise also owned a pet. So not black and white, but you know, it's statistics. Nothing is ever black and white, so that's okay. So going back to the project, step 4 for the story, you need to do a minimum of 3 different comparisons of the data. So there's one comparison, even though that's 2 different things. So even though that looks like 2 things, that's still technically kind of just one thing because you're just looking at the pet ownership and hours exercised per week. So what else can we look at? So we looked at exercise. What else? What about TV? Do you think people who have pets watch a lot of TV? That could be an interesting question. So we would head back over here, look, and so according to this one, in case you're not sure, pet is categorical, and watching TV is also, I didn't put it down there, but it is categorical. So what we're looking for is the type of comparison that has 2 categorical variables. So here's one, table of counts and proportions, and categorical data bar chart. That one seems interesting. So let's try a bar chart with this one. So if you watch the video, you'd see that we would go to graph, bar chart, counts of unique values, cluster, and then here we've got pet sleep, so pretend there's nothing there. So we would say, let's look at pet ownership and then TV. My thought is that people who have pets don't watch as much TV because they're busy giving their pet lots of attention. But let's see. And what do we see? We see people who don't have a pet spend, okay, it looks like there's a large number of people, right? So no pet, 0 versus 1 to 3 hours. Okay, so people tend to there, where people who have a pet, it seems like more people who have a pet don't, right? Because you've got 7 people who don't have a pet, you know, versus 1 who don't watch any TV. And then you've only got 6 here versus 8 there. So if you remember and you did watch that, it's one of these where, is this the best way to display this information? I'm not sure. So let's go ahead, you can click back on this button, and let's switch those variables around. Do TV and then pet. Now let's look at it. Okay, so this one, so this is the previous one. So here you said we have pet, no pet. So here instead, we've got people who watch 0 hours of TV. Well, it looks like by far there's way more people who don't watch TV that have pets versus the people who watch TV 1 to 3 hours. More people who don't have pets watch 1 to 3 hours. So that does seem to kind of back up what I was saying, right? I would, you know what, I think I might go ahead and copy this for now because this seems kind of good. It seems like something, right? Maybe. And then it just kind of comes down to which story you think is a better illustration of your story. For me, I kind of like the 0 hours and people who don't watch any TV, pet to no pet. I like that comparison, but it's kind of however you want to tell your story. But then I'm just going to come down here and make sure to give it a title. So, having a pet, no, two, and this is really rough. Like that's just my really rough. I'm just putting something there kind of as a placeholder so I can remind myself, and so then I've got like a place to put a title. So there I've got 2. I need 1 more. And honestly, what else would be interesting to look at? How about pet ownership and gender? I don't know. I mean, you could also do hours of sleep or glasses of water, like maybe people who have pets drink more water. It just really comes down to what you're interested in. But you know what? I'm interested in pet ownership and gender. So this time, instead of doing that bar chart, I'm going to do a different type. And this is on the one table or the videos I showed you. And in this case, gender, I'll leave gender there. This time I'm going to pick pet, and I'll have those. And let's see what we find. So if I want to know for people who have a pet, so this would be this column right here. So people who have a pet, compared, we see that for people who have a pet, and this is the column data, so we're looking at this percentage right here, 38% of people who have a pet are female, 53%, almost 54% are male, and almost 8% identify themselves as other. So it looks like for people who have a pet, the vast majority of people who have a pet are men. Yet, if you want to look at, let's say, just women, so that was one way of thinking about the data, of just people who have a pet. You could also look at it the other way, people who don't have a pet, then you'd be the 33.3, 55.56, and 11. So interestingly enough, men also, it's pretty much split exactly 50-50. So while men tend to be the ones who are more likely to have a pet, they're also the ones who are more likely to not have a pet. I know that seems funny, but you're looking at it just going down proportion-wise. So that might be something where it's more interesting to compare your row data. So out of the females, so now we're going across, right? We're doing the rows. 62.5% of the women had pets versus 58.33% of the men, and this is the going across. So that's kind of a little more interesting in that if you look at just the women, so this is where if you took all of the women in this group and put them in one room and said who has a pet, you would have 62.5% who had a pet. Then if you took all the men, put them in a different room, said who has a pet, it would be that 58.33. If you took the people who identified as other, you would have 50%. So if you look at it by gender, females, so if you're looking just females, they do tend to have pets more often than not. So I don't know, just something interesting. And for me, I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to copy it as my picture. And there are my 3 things that I'm going to use for my story. So gender and pet ownership. Woohoo, I spelled it right this time. And there we go. And it probably doesn't need to be this big. Okay. So I've got that. And okay. So 3, you would want to kind of talk through how you ended up coming up with, this is what I'm going to go with, which I went with pets. For the story you decide to tell, you need to do a minimum of 3 comparisons. Make sure to copy all of these and make sure it's clear which variables were used. So that was the gender, pet ownership. Having a pet, so I should probably have pet ownership here compared to time spent watching TV, and pet ownership compared to hours exercise per week. Okay, copy that, make sure. Got it. All right, so then step 5 is tell your story. So then the very last part here, step 5, and this is tell your story. So this is where you actually interpret the data. Say what you found and what you think it means. As part of that, so tell the story, what it showed for our class data, what does this tell you about our class? Now, granted, that wasn't from our class. That was from a different math class from a few semesters ago, actually a few years ago. But so this data, though, is from our class. So what does this tell us about our class? Explain why you think the results can or can't be generalized out to the larger population of students at Richland. And what about other colleges? Do you think this data, do you think this type of data that you analyze is similar to other data that you would find from other colleges? I don't know, but you think about it and you talk about it. Write that up in step 5, and make sure as you're doing this, please make sure you're saving. Really, really important. But yeah, I mean, this is 4 pages, so you should probably have at least 4 or 5, maybe 6 pages, depending on how big your stuff is. But if you walk through here with me, I'm at what? I'm not even quite at 30 minutes, and I almost did the project. So in theory, this should not take you, I mean, granted, I knew what I was doing because I've done this a lot, but this project should only take you about an hour to work through, and I hope this video really helps. Obviously, if you have questions, let me know. Make sure to save it, but then this is the actual file that you save and you submit to this assignment.